infiltration because the northern border, of course, is so volatile with Hezbollah's presence there, and it would be if Hezbollah is involved in any way with this infiltration, which they kind of have to be because Hezbollah controls southern Lebanon. Nothing happens there without their okay, at least, even if this ends up being attributed to a different Palestinian group, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, who all have presence up there. Hezbollah is the one who will ultimately say whether it's okay or not. And so then the question becomes, how will Israel respond to this? Even if it ends up just being a bunch of drones, unarmed drones that were sent up into the sky just to cause these alarms to go off to cause panic for the residents of northern Israel, I do expect we'll see some sort of Israeli response. But right now, the Israeli military is trying to just figure out what in the world is going on up north. Were these drones? Were these armed people on paraglides? Were these armed drones of some kind? So that's why the residents up there are being told to continue sheltering in place.
Which is completely understandable given the trauma of what happened on Saturday. And I should just tell you and our viewers that as you were talking about what was going on in the north, there continues to be shelling, the response going into Gaza, and we're seeing that in the night sky in Gaza. Speaking of Gaza, Hadass, because this is such a fast-moving story, we intended to talk about what I'm going to ask you about at the top of the hour, and it's something that we cannot underscore enough, which is the information that we are now learning about the brutal, savage murders in a kibbutz in the south, near the Gaza border, on Saturday, having to do with toddlers, having to do with babies. What have you learned?
We now have confirmation from the Israeli Prime Minister's office that in Kfar Aza, which is a kibbutz, a small community near the northern part of the Gaza Strip, that they found decapitated babies and toddlers. They did not give a number of children or babies who they found in this state, but even just one is absolutely horrific to think about. This is absolute brutality. This isn't just, we knew that they had gone in and shot and killed and abducted women and the children and the elderly from their homes, literally from their beds, but we didn't know the extent of this brutality. We had heard reports about decapitations happening to soldiers. We'd heard reports about decapitations happening to civilians and children, and now we have confirmation from the Israeli Prime Minister's office about the brutality of what is there. We have been hearing from some of the first responders who, were on the scene to begin with, and you can hear it in their voices that what they saw with their eyes has completely scarred them and forever has changed them. And I think that what's happened in the south has completely scarred and forever changed every single Israeli, and that's why I think the rhetoric that we're hearing from the Israeli military and the Israeli government is completely different in regards to Gaza, in regards to how they plan to respond specifically to Hamas, to completely obliterate them. They have now been making saying that Hamas is ISIS, saying that Hamas is the same as the brutality we saw from ISIS. And in a way, it's just hard to imagine anything worse than not only going into a civilian community and targeting and killing babies and children, but then doing something just so brutal. It's just so hard to understand and to comprehend that any human being alive on this earth would be capable of doing such a thing.
It sure is, Hadass, and we see on the screen, when you're referring to this, some of the language that we've heard from the Israeli government, including the Prime Minister. The attack is savagery not seen since the Holocaust. As a parent and as just a member of the human race, it's hard to digest. Thank you so much, Hadass. We'll be right back.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
Do you think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with Caitlin Collins, tonight at 9. Get help reaching your goals with JP Morgan Wealth Plan, the digital money coach in the Chase mobile app. Use it to set and track your goals, big and small, and see how changes you make today could help put them within reach. From your first big move to retiring poolside and the other goals along the way, Wealth Plan can help you get there. JP Morgan Wealth Management.
Remember the things you loved before asthma got in the way? Fasenra is an add-on treatment for asthma driven by eosinophils. It's designed to target and remove them and helps prevent asthma attacks. Fasenra is not for sudden breathing problems or other eosinophilic conditions. Allergic reactions may occur. Don't stop your asthma treatment without talking with your doctor. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens. Headache and sore throat may occur. Tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection. Get back to better breathing. Ask your doctor about Fasenra.
Teeth sensitivity is so common. It immediately feels like somebody's poking directly on the nerve. I recommend Sensodyne. Sensodyne toothpaste goes inside the tooth and calms the nerve down. And my patients say, doc, it really works.
She runs and plays like a puppy again.
His number twos are perfect. He's a brand new dog all in less than a year.
When people switch their dog's food from kibble to the farmer's dog, they often say that it feels like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply fresh meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of dried pellets. Just food made for the health of dogs, delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do.
Hi, I'd like to tell you about a cashew farmer from Mozambique named Carlos. Carlos used to struggle to provide enough food and education for his family, but then everything changed. TechnoServe helps farmers like Carlos lift themselves out of poverty by building skills, connections, and confidence. Today, Carlos and his family are thriving, and so are his cashews. Go to technoserve.org and donate today. It's a different way to make a difference.
If you struggle and struggle and struggle with CPAP, you should check out Inspire. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Learn more and view important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
If we want a more viable future for our kids, we need to find more sustainable ways of doing things. America's plastic makers are investing billions of dollars in new technologies and creating plastic products that are more recyclable, durable, and dependable. Our goal is a cleaner, healthier planet for generations to come. For a better tomorrow, we're focused on making plastics better today.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein.
Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients for immune health.
We're Carvana, the company who invented car vending machines and buying a car 100% online. Now we've created a brand new way for you to sell your car. Whether it's a year old or a few years old, we want to buy your car. So go to Carvana, enter your license plate, answer a few questions, and our techno wizardry calculates your car's value and gives you a real offer in seconds. When you're ready, we'll come to you, pay you on the spot, and pick up your car. That's it. So ditch the old way of selling your car and say hello to the new way at Carvana.
Now's the time for cleaner indoor air with an air duct cleaning from Stanley Steamer. You've known us for carpet cleaning, but we've been cleaning air ducts for over 20 years. We do things the right way, cleaning your entire system. So if you need an air duct cleaning, call 1-800-STEAMER today.
Families across Israel with missing loved ones who were taken by Hamas terrorists are still hoping for their safe return. One young boy abducted was Erez Calderon, an 11-year-old who was taken from the kibbutz near the Gaza border. What you are about to see is very difficult to watch. This is video of Erez Calderon being taken by a Hamas terrorist. CNN has geolocated this video and confirmed its authenticity. Erez's cousin, Ido Dunn, joins me now. Ido, thank you so much. You were on with us earlier this week. First, I know that you are aware that we were showing this, and it's video that you wanted the world to see.
Yeah. It took his mom a while to agree, but eventually she did.
Because?
Because first of all, she hasn't seen it. We just described to her what's in there, and we convinced. She thought that it will harm him, and we convinced her that actually it's really important and maybe even will help bringing him back home safe. But that's our hope, because in light of what happened on Saturday, we cannot be really sure anymore. In fact, we were very worried because what happened on Saturday was totally different than anything that we've seen in this conflict. And in fact, I think at this moment we already know that it's nothing even closer to anything that happened since World War II and the Holocaust. This brutality, butchering of kids. We just heard that in the next, the adjustment kibbutz, a baby's head were decapitated. I mean, this is just, I can't even repeat, these thoughts. I mean, this is not a human being behavior. Something terrible is going on in the heads of those people. I mean, I've never, I'm not young, and I've been to the military and I've seen stuff. Such a stomach sickening. I mean, I've never felt such a nausea. Browsing through videos from the Hamas, and actually you didn't have the guts to play them because they're so horrible. It just, but my family told me, some of my family members, that actually you need to look the evil in the eyes. You need to see that to understand, much like in the Holocaust. Hamas, some people think that Hamas is the military of the Palestinians. We need to rethink that. This is not the situation. Hamas is an extreme terror organization, much like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And actually, I think that the Palestinians, most of the Palestinians in Gaza are hostages as well. And they're brainwashed, and they're being kept by extremely dangerous group of people that we just got a glimpse of what they can do. It's unbelievable. They went house by house, and they broke everything, they shot everything. They shot, all directions, and they just threw grenades. They looted all the houses. There was so much rage. My cousin says that she heard a weird music, very loud music, that she couldn't really tell what language it was. It almost felt like psychedelic music, and maybe to give them some kind of a motivation or energy or collective psychosis. I have no idea. But they were trying to get her out of the shelter, the safe room. In Israel, every house, it's mandatory to have a shelter, which is a safe room that's supposed to basically protect the citizens from bomb shelling, from missiles. I don't think it was ever designed to protect, the citizens from terrorists to come from within the apartment,
Door
within
to
the
door.
house, and just
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's impossible to lock it.
I just want to mention that we saw the video, and we saw pictures of Erez, your cousin's child. He's one of many of your family members who are missing. Have you heard anything at all from the Israeli government? Any guidance on any aspect of their disappearance?
I feel a bit ashamed to admit that the answer is no. We haven't gotten any official announcements. Nobody approached us. In fact, we did have a conversation with a lady from the State Department, because Carmela, my aunt, is 8 years old, American citizen, and with her, 3 of her grandchildren are abducted, and the father of 2 of them. And so actually we just, we had.
So you have heard from the U.S. State Department?
Only with the State Department. Can you believe that? But you know what? I don't blame Israel, because it's really unprecedented what's going on here, and there is some mess before things will be organized.
Yeah.
So I think that eventually they will contact us and we'll get things right.
Yeah, your understanding is notable because the Israeli government is a little bit busy right now, and that is obviously something that you are alluding to. And I should just underscore, you talked about your Aunt Carmela. She is a U.S. citizen. She was born in Massachusetts, so she, as we're looking at a photo of her beautiful face now, she is one of the American citizens that the U.S. government is talking about that is missing, and they're not sure where they are, but everybody is praying and hoping that everybody who is missing and unaccounted for comes back safely, including and especially your nephew Erez. Thank you so much for coming back and telling your story, Ido. I really appreciate it, and we will definitely stay in touch. Thank you.
I just hope that they will get back alive.
Yes, we all do. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining Inside Politics. CNN News Central starts after a quick break.
It's true. Contacts are great until they get dry. So we created new BioTrue Hydration Boost for contacts for a boost of moisture that lasts up to 8 hours. So all kinds of contacts can stay comfortable throughout the day. And it's preservative free. Stay BioTrue to your eyes.
You look like a flower, so sweet today. You look like a flower, each and every way. You look like a flower.
Etsy has home, style, gifts. Etsy has it. Airwick's limited edition fragrances are infused with natural essential oils for authentic seasonal scents that fill your home with warmth and cheer.
Create a backyard that's out of this world. Right now, save $50 on the MS-250 chainsaw. Real steel. Find yours.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
These bills are crazy.
She has no idea she's sitting on a gold mine. She doesn't know that if she owns a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, she can sell all or part of it to Coventry for cash, even a term policy. Even a term policy? Even a term policy!
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-461-8800 or visit coventrydirect.com.
I'm Natasha Chen in Los Angeles, and this is CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-800-710-0020.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Call InventHelp today. They can help you get started with your idea.
Call now. 800-710-0020.
I'm Boris Sanchez in Washington, D.C., alongside Anderson Cooper in Tel Aviv. We begin this afternoon with the Israeli government confirming some of the most disturbing reports that have surfaced in the wake of the Hamas terrorist attacks this weekend. The Prime Minister's office says that babies and toddlers were found decapitated in the small community of Kfar Aza. That's the kibbutz where Israeli defense forces say that Hamas butchered civilians, though Hamas denies that it attacked children. The unprecedented atrocities have put months of bitter division within the Israeli government on pause. They've now formed an emergency unity government and war cabinet, and in just a few hours, the U.S. Secretary of State will be there in Israel to meet with senior officials. Anderson?
Boris, here in Israel, 300,000 reservists have massed near the border with Gaza, signaling a possible ground invasion could be imminent. Overnight, the first shipment of U.S. munitions arrived here in Israel. That, of course, to bolster Israel's arsenal. The Pentagon has tasked special operators to assist the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, with planning for potential hostage rescues. Now, it is believed that Hamas has captured more than 100 hostages. Islamic Jihad had claimed that they had 30. Overall, there are an unknown number of Americans being held hostage. The White House says at least 20 U.S. citizens are right now unaccounted for, and the State Department now confirms at least 22 Americans have died in Israel. That is up from just 14. That was the number about 12 hours ago. So those numbers are growing. Right now, I want to get you to CNN's Nick Robertson, who's in Sderot, right by the Gazan border. Nick, what have you been seeing over the last several hours?
Yeah, just literally, Anderson, as you were coming to us there, I know if you can pick that up, there it's going. There. So what we're hearing there is gunfire, heavy machine gunfire. It's hard to tell how far away it is. We're in a safe location from that gunfire. But that's something new. That's not something we've been hearing so much of recently. We've also been seeing and hearing heavy artillery strikes on Gaza, the big yellow flashes that you may see behind me in the next couple of minutes. A few seconds later, perhaps 10-15 seconds later, you'll hear the huge explosion here. But that machine gun fire, that's something new. Now, we've seen today additional troops deployed around the area we're in, Sderot, just a couple of miles from the border fence with Gaza. So the tempo of troop presence, the tempo of their activity, the patrols around here are getting bigger numbers of troops in the patrols. There's a machine gun fire again. We've seen tanks firing off this evening as well towards the fence with Gaza. That's something new. We haven't seen that until this evening. So the picture of the picture of what troops are doing, it's really developing. And as I say, this is quite a new development to have that gunfire over there. We don't know why. It sounds closer than the actual border fence itself, but we do know the security around here has really been stepped up, because every day there seem to be several concerns that there have been infiltrations by Hamas, and John is telling me here, our cameraman, to expect these explosions. There might be another explosion coming up behind me shortly. That heavy impact there, that was the impact associated with that flash you saw. So you get an idea of how far away from us that impact is. If you see the flash and you wait maybe 15 seconds for that to hear the bang, then that gives you an idea. It's a good few miles away, perhaps 7 or 8, and there'll be another explosion coming soon, I think, from what John was indicating here behind me. With they've seen. There was another one.
Nick,
so that's the tempo of what's happening here. Just the other.
Nick, with the gunfire that you have now been hearing, that we have been hearing, but somewhere behind you, talk about that a little bit, because obviously what has occurred in Sderot, what's occurred in Ashkelon early on, was Hamas attackers on the ground, gunmen on the ground, slaughtering people. Israel has worked hard to try to eliminate all of them on the ground. Is the area secure in the sense of from your ability to move around?
It's much more controlled than it was. There are a lot more police checkpoints around, and they're enforcing controls on who can use the road much more strictly than there were before. We understand that the concern about Hamas cells being out there, some who've gone to ground, that they've been holed up in a location, they're running out of food, they're running out of water, and they're breaking out. But also you get more troops on the ground, like we've seen. They cover more ground, they're more likely to come into contact with these elements, and we've seen these armored fighting vehicles out today, and they come mounted with a heavy machine gun on the front of them, and that's the type of heavy machine gun that I think that we're hearing there. So it could be that a group of soldiers, they've established themselves in a field or wherever their location is, They've got guards on their perimeter, and they might have picked up some movement, or they might have seen something through thermal imaging or night vision or whatever it is, and they've realized that that's a target, and they're going after it. So I think more and more of this may come.
And Nick, you were at Kfar Aza yesterday, and want to talk about it because over the last 24, 36 hours, we have been starting to the full picture of what occurred on some of these kibbutzes is becoming clear. Kfar Aza near Oz is another one. Kfar Aza is the site of these atrocities that the Israeli government has now confirmed that babies were beheaded. Talk about what you saw. You talked to the commander on the ground there.
Yeah, toddlers and babies beheaded, and when I think now, because you and I were talking about this last night, and we didn't see any of the bodies, I really would not have expected the Israeli Defense Forces to be parading out bodies of decapitated children, and it's such a sensitive issue. But when I reflect back on what the commander said to us, the Major General in charge, again, I'll repeat this line because it really sticks. He said, I was shocked what I found, Massacre. He said that, I was reminded, he said, of what General Eisenhower said when he found the atrocities, when he found the death camps after World War II. He said, get the press in here, show them. So I think that's what was taking place yesterday. And I realize now that when he said there was beheadings and that families were being killed, he was really understating the brutality of what he'd seen and what he was aware of, because we've now heard it now from the Prime Minister's spokesman confirming this. So it kind of just adds that other degree of incredulity. I think that there could be that level of barbarity, but the commander was telling us, these families, some of them, their hands were bound when they were executed. So the shock level here is just horrific, and for him it was reminding him of what his parents had gone through. They left Europe, and they were survivors of the Second World War. We don't need to kind of say more when you have those points of reference.
Yeah, Nick Robertson, thank you. We'll come back to you shortly. I want to bring in CNN's Alex Marquardt right now. Alex, we are learning new details from U.S. intelligence about when and what Iran knew or may have known about the terror attacks on Israel. What have you learned from sources? What are you hearing from the government?
Well, Anderson, there's no question that Iran bears major responsibility here. The administration still sticking to their line that Iran is broadly complicit in this attack because of the years of funding, of training, of material support. But what we're hearing from U.S. intelligence sources and people familiar with the intelligence is that for now, there is still no smoking gun that directly connects Iran to the execution, to the planning, to the approval of this attack. Certainly they are complicit because of the support that they've given to Hamas over the years, but for now, and they're still going through the intelligence, there is no direct tie. In fact, we're told by U.S. intelligence officials that Iranian officials expressed some surprise at this attack. Now, Anderson, that surprise may come around the timing of it. I spoke with a senior Israeli official who said that he really doubts that Iran was not aware of this plot. Another senior Israeli official spoke with our colleague Matthew Chance just recently, saying that Iran effectively gave the green light for this operation, that they might not have been aware of the timing, but they're certainly aware of this Hamas operation. Again, both Israeli and American intelligence communities now, as is protocol, going back and combing through any evidence that they may have looked over to see if there's a more direct connection between Iran and these attacks over the weekend.
Alex Marquardt from our bureau in Washington. Alex, thanks very much. I want to go back to Boris Sanchez. Boris?
Anderson, we do have some breaking news just into CNN. There was a big vote among Republicans in the House today to determine a new speaker, and the GOP's nomination for speaker has gone to Steve Scalise, the Republican congressman from Louisiana, winning the GOP's nomination for speaker on a secret ballot that is, per multiple sources, in the House of Representatives. A major win, but not a guaranteed path to the speakership. he still needs a majority of the entire chamber to replace Kevin McCarthy, the ousted speaker who was removed by the House last week. Let's get you to Capitol Hill right now. I believe we have CNN's Manu Raju in place. Manu, this is a big win for Congressman Scalise.
Yeah, no question about it. This victory coming barely clearing the majority threshold that he needed to be nominated as Speaker of the House. That majority threshold was at 111 Republican votes. He got 113 votes. The vote was 113 to 99, defeating House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who had the support of former President Donald Trump, had the support of a lot of conservatives, including the ones who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. But this vote to elevate Steve Scalise, who is currently the House Majority Leader, the number 2 under the Speaker, to the speakership, essentially is a sign that he has some work to do, because of the fact that in order to be elected as the House Speaker, you need to have 217 votes on the House floor. And at the moment, as you can see, a long ways from getting that. In fact, there was a debate inside the conference this morning about whether the person to be nominated as Speaker should have to clear that 217 vote threshold behind closed doors in the conference meeting. Scalise's supporters defeated that motion. Jordan's team tried to push for that motion, believing that it could help him get elected to the speakership. Now the work is cut out for Scalise, who has to try to avoid the same fate as Kevin McCarthy, who in January went through 15 rounds on the House floor to get the requisite number of votes to be elected Speaker. Can he do that? That is one of the big questions that he will have to deal with here. A number of members voted present because they didn't like their choices and concerns about some of the answers that these two men gave. Others were with Jim Jordan, and Jordan himself has not said that he would vote for Scalise. I asked him that question going into this conference meeting. He said, I will get behind whoever can get 217 votes. Well, Scalise did not get 217 votes. If Jordan does not get behind Scalise, that could lead to a messy fight on the House floor. So now where does this go from here? Now you have to make a decision on when to bring this to the full House. It could happen as soon as this afternoon. It could go into next week. It could go into tomorrow. That will be a key decision here, because Scalise will have to ultimately decide if he wants to take a risk, go to the floor, if he does not have the low votes locked down here. But a significant moment after this House has been paralyzed following that historic vote, an unprecedented vote to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. Now the Republicans have voted on a nominee. Now, can he get the votes? Can he be elected Speaker? And can they move on these key issues, whether it's aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine, avoiding a government shutdown by mid-November? All major questions after Republicans nominating here Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, to be the next Speaker of the House.
Boris. Manu Raju, please stand by and keep us updated with any new information that you get. Joining us now is CNN's Dana Bash. Dana, you were literally on the phone just moments ago before joining us. A long list of priorities for the House: aid to Israel, aid to Ukraine, but chiefly the House is paralyzed until they elect a new speaker. How big is this development that Steve Scalise is now the Republican nominee?
Huge, but I think we need to underscore, highlight, put in bold the key caveat that Manu was just talking about, which is that with every other leader of the Congress, House, Senate, all you need is a majority of the people in your party, and then you're the leader. And this is a constitutional role, the Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency, which means that there is going to be a vote on the floor. People who were not under a rock in January know that that is something that tends to be difficult sometimes. It certainly was with the 15 rounds that McCarthy had to go through in order to get that. And so the question is, right now, how quickly is Steve Scalise going to be able to get those who voted for Jim Jordan, and according to Manu and our team, it was pretty split, to get them to come over and support Steve Scalise. So as quickly as that happens, that will answer the first question that you asked me, Boris, which is how and when will it get on with the business of the American people? And look, the pressure is on. This isn't just a run-of-the-mill vote, not just because the government is going to run out of money in about a month, but because of these crises on the world stage. And look, this does tend to historically be a moment that galvanizes and rallies in a bipartisan way the American people, and certainly puts pressure on Congress to get its act together. Sure. We've seen it in big moments before. This is not the way it was and we've seen lots of bits of evidence of that hardliners continue to be hardliners, and I'm not sure that even what we're seeing in Israel, for example, will be something that will ease the way for Steve Scalise as it would have maybe just a few years ago, to just get the votes and move on.
Let's talk about his path toward the speakership, because as you noted with Kevin McCarthy, there were 15 rounds of votes over 4 days. He made some major concessions to the hardliners in his party, including that one vote necessary for a motion to vacate. How does Scalise convince those who perhaps oppose him, and we know he's got some rivals in the House, even among Republicans, how does he get him over to his side?
Well, we have to, this was a behind closed doors meeting. It was a secret ballot. We don't know yet, and I'm sure our excellent reporters are going to find out momentarily, if there were any promises along those lines that Steve Scalise made to not only hardliners, but to some of the moderates who are really upset about the way in which the Republicans, the 8 Republicans who ousted McCarthy, went about doing that. So we don't know what has gone on behind closed doors. What we do know is that some of what happened with Kevin McCarthy was personal.
Right.
And yes, there were a lot of complaints about spending and about promises made and not promises kept, but some of it was personal. So I mentioned that by suggesting that perhaps with the Steve Scalise, there might be a bit more grace in the short term to say, okay, we're going to let you do your thing and not put the shackles on you.
Dan, I hate to cut you off,
Yeah,
but we want to
please.
go straight to Monterrey. I believe he's in the middle of an interview.
Today, the vote is on the floor.
I'm confident.
It's going to happen today?
Yeah, oh, yes, by early as 3, yeah.
They said 3, so you expect the vote on the floor today?
Correct. We get a new speaker, a 56 speaker, yes. And because of that, because that seat's become vacant, I'm announcing I'm running for majority leader.
You are?
Yes.
Are you disappointed, Mr. Donalds? Are you disappointed?
Disappointed? The only thing I'm focused on right now is getting back to business.
Is the vote going to be this afternoon?
At the call of Mr. McKinley.
Are you guys with me? Okay. Hey, Mr. Disbusiness. Hey, Mr. Congressman, who did you end up voting for just now? We're live on CNN.
Please.
So, are you expecting the vote to happen this afternoon?
That's what we're told. We'll see what happens.
I mean, he only got 113 votes. Are you concerned this is going to take some time to get to 2 seconds?
It's my hope that our conference comes together so we can elect a speaker.
I'm sure if you guys are still with me. Mr. Bishop, who did you end up voting for just now?
I don't have a comment right now.
Are you disappointed that Steve Scalise won? All right, now you guys are still on with me. We're trying to get some reaction here from some of the members here, but one of the big things that we just heard was that we expect a vote this afternoon. Congressman, who did you end up voting for just now in the secret ballot?
I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but I'm planning on voting for the Steve Scalise who came out of conference.
Are you concerned that he may not get 217 votes, or could face the same issues that McCarthy faced?
I hope we all get to 217 on the floor. I hope we do that very quickly.
What was it like in there? Was the mood pretty contentious? Was it pretty divided in there?
There were a lot of rounds of applause after Steve was announced as the winner, and I think that there's going to be a lot of work to be done before we come to the floor to make sure that we get to that 217 number.
Did Jim Jordan endorse Steve Scalise in there?
I'm not going to comment.
I heard that he did not. Is that your understanding?
He said he would vote for whoever could get to 217 on the floor.
Well, that's another big question here, guys, is that what will Jim Jordan do? Will he actually say that he is behind Steve Scalise? I've heard now from multiple members who hear of Congressman saying that Jim Jordan didn't explicitly say that he's endorsing Steve Scalise, that he would skip behind whoever can get 217 votes on the House floor. Can Steve Scalise get there? He didn't get there in the conference meeting. And what will some of those members who may want some concessions, will they fall in line? So there seems to be some confusion, too, about the timing of all this. Some of the members believe that there could be a vote this afternoon to elect the next Speaker of the House. We'll see if that's officially announced today. So perhaps the Scalise team wants to push ahead, wants to force this vote right now, and doesn't want to force this to linger, because the longer that he lingers, then the more deals he may have to cut with some of those hardliners who essentially ended Kevin McCarthy's speakership. He wants to avoid that. Scalise so far has indicated he has not cut those side deals. He said that to his conference last night, but he might have to do that in order to get to 217 votes. Perhaps by going to the floor and daring some of the members to vote against him, he may not have to cut some of those side deals. So we'll see ultimately how this plays out. But it's also interesting here, guys, to note this was a secret ballot election. Some of these members simply just don't even want to talk about how they voted. Congressman Dan Bishop, for one, who was aligned with some of those hardliners in his conference, not saying how he would vote, how he voted just now. Some of them indicating that they'll still vote for Scalise if he's on the floor. But a divided Republican conference at this key moment here, deciding to move forward with Steve Scalise on the narrowest of margins internally. But can he get there? Can he get the votes to be elected Speaker? A lot of the Republicans hope that he can get there. But the question is, how will he be able to get that done, and whether some of those detractors ultimately will fall in line. I'm going to ask Mr. Fry, who did you end up voting for?
I was Jim Jordan, publicly Jim Jordan.
So are you disappointed that it was Steve Scalise?
Look, I think this was a fair process. We had two great candidates running. I've said that from the very beginning. They've both been mentors to me just as a freshman, and so now we need to go elect Steve Scalise as the next Speaker of the House.
Are you expecting this to happen this afternoon? So there you go. It's another member also thinking that he can actually, that Scalise is going to take it to the floor this afternoon and we'll get the votes. This is, of course, a Jordan supporter right here, Congressman Russell Fry. So some of them will ultimately fall in line, but there's always those handful of members. This is the risk of the narrowly divided House that Kevin McCarthy, that doomed his speakership. 221 members in the House. That means 217 votes. He can only afford to lose 4 votes in order to reach that 217 vote threshold here. So a pretty chaotic moment where this Republican conference has been unable to figure out how to move ahead, now choosing Steve Scalise, and can he get them out of this state of paralysis? That remains the big question at this key moment, guys.
Manu, let's step back. Talk to us about Steve Scalise's path to the nomination. He's somebody who was elected to the House back in 2008. He wasn't exactly part of the Freedom Caucus wave in 2010.
We're live.
Manu, you have something?
Yeah, I do. Congressman Bill Zinga from Michigan. So who did you end up voting for, and what was it like inside the room?
Let me tell you what it was like inside the room. It was, I think, a fairly cooperative spirit. There was robust expressions. You know, the rule about whether we were going to come out with a confirmed 217 or not obviously went down. That rule vote failed, or that proposed amendment failed. But I'm not going to say who I voted for, because I know who I will be voting for on the House floor. It's going to be Steve Scalise. I hope the rest of my colleagues will follow that as well. We need to restore the stability of the House of Representatives, and we need to make sure that everything from having a check on this administration to making sure that we're affirming and confirming our support of Israel. There's some very important things that need to happen.
How worried are you that the same thing could happen to Kevin McCarthy? That this could go on and on the House floor, and if he wins the speakership, he could be facing the same handful of members who could scuttle his moves at every turn?
It's very possible, which was one of the reasons why I publicly had said I thought we should get that 217 confirmation vote behind closed doors. The caucus decided not to do that, so I abide by that. I just hope people are going to abide by the spirit of that. So if we didn't have a formal rules change, that's fine. I hope the spirit of that, though, does hold.
Are you worried, though, that this could drag out of the floor for some time?
I hope and pray not. I hope that we're able to move quickly and get this done as soon as we possibly can.
You think it'll happen this afternoon also?
I hope so. I hope so, and I think that's the work that hopefully now Speaker-elect Scalise is going to be working on.
Thanks for your time. Sorry, yeah. So there you hear it from Congressman Bill Zinga about where things stand at the moment. Vote is still, they think it can happen this afternoon, but as you can hear from the congressman, didn't want to say who he voted for, but also fully recognizing that this is unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen on the House floor as soon as this afternoon. Will members fall in line? Will they simply say that we have to get the House moving because the House cannot move? at this moment. Mr. Massey, are you concerned at all about this outcome?
Concerned?
Did you back Mr. Jordan? Is that right?
Yes, I voted for Jordan.
Yes. So are you concerned about Scalise winning?
Well, I'm concerned he doesn't have the votes to get to 218, and so we should probably resolve that before we go to the floor.
So you don't think he can get there to 218?
I don't think he has the. I didn't say I don't think he could get there. I said I don't think he has the votes right now.
So what do we have to do to get there?
We need to have meetings and talk.
Because there's some talk. It sounds like from talking to a number of members that they want to have a vote this afternoon. Would that be a mistake in your view?
It's actually up to Mr. Scalise now when the vote happens.
Mm-hmm. But would it be a mistake to have the votes this afternoon? In your opinion, I mean, if it happened, do you think it would be a bad idea?
I don't care whether it happens or not.
So if it goes to the floor, will you vote for Scalise?
I have a meeting with Scalise to talk about this.
How is it Richard Jordan? I do. So from one congressman right there, Mr. Thomas Massey, still deciding whether or not he will vote for Steve Scalise, wants some more time to discuss it with the members. And I can tell you, he's not alone. He probably feels that same way about whether or not he will actually be ready to vote for him. I'm going to try to ask Congressman Scott. Mr. Perry, are you going to vote for Steve Scalise on the floor? Mr. Perry? Mr. Perry? Okay, you didn't answer my question there. But that's another question, is whether or not some of these members who may have voted for Jim Jordan, may have abstained, may have voted present, will vote for Steve Scalise. Thomas Massey wants some more time, and he may not get that more time because the Scalise supporters are eager to take this to the floor and have a vote immediately this afternoon. We'll see if that's the decision of Steve Scalise. But another important thing that Thomas Massey just pointed out, this is ultimately the decision of the Speaker nominee, Steve Scalise. When does he want to have this vote? Is it time to just pull the bandage off, fight this out on the floor, see what happens? That is a huge risk. One of the fights that they had internally today is to avoid that. They wanted to just sort some of the members, including namely the Jordan supporters, wanted to just fight this out behind closed doors, take some time, figure out which candidate to get to 217 votes, which is going to be the magic number on the floor, and then not have that drawn-out, long floor fight. Scalise's team did not want that. They were concerned if they went down that route, he would not win the nomination. And now they are left with the prospects of not getting the votes on the House floor after getting barely a majority of his conference to support him in the nomination. So what will those other 99 members do? Will they all fall in line? A lot of them will. A lot of them are willing to support this nominee on the floor of the House. A lot of them simply, like Thomas Massey, who backed Jim Jordan, not ready to back Scalise yet. Wants to have some meetings, so perhaps they may have to wait a little bit of time. We'll see, though, what the House Majority Leader, now Speaker nominee Steve Scalise, decides to do about the timing of this critical vote. Guys.
Manu, please stand by and keep us updated on who you're able to speak to there as these Republicans are exiting this closed-door meeting. We have Jamie Gangel joining the conversation now. And something that stuck out to me as Manu was playing interference with these Republicans as they're leaving, the variety of answers that we got, right? Some of them were very enthusiastic about Steve Scalise. Some of them, as Thomas Massey did, said they needed more time. And there's not just disagreement about who they might support, but also when they should hold this vote.
As we say, not so much. I just want to say there is nothing better than watching Manu navigate the hallway. And to your point, we saw two members in a row. One, it appears, is voting for Scalise. The other one, Massey, said that he's concerned he doesn't have the votes. And there was a comment about that they hope and pray. Hope and pray. Kevin McCarthy hoped and prayed, and he went 15 rounds. And I think that, what's the number here? 4 votes. They can only afford to, Scalise can only afford to lose 4 votes. That does not sound like he's there.
And Boris, the timing and the votes, they're all very much connected, and it is the first test, and this is what you're referring to, Jamie, the first test of leadership for Steve Scalise, and not only whether he has the votes immediately or whether he will choose to hold the vote and I think the official term is jam the rest of his conference and say, really, you want to do this all over again? Okay, let's see how it goes. And historically, somebody who is in the catbird seat, somebody who will have the gavel eventually, the members of the conference who are not so sure, they decide, I don't want to cross him or her, so I'm just going to go along and go with the flow. And that is one of the most fascinating things that I'm going to be watching in the next few hours as to whether Steve Scalise will step into that power role and how he uses his power.
Power is the key point, because the speaker can say, you're on this committee, you're not on this committee, where is your office? There is so much power, it's how they exercise it.
There's got to be some incentive to offer those members that might be resisting. Casey Hunt joining us now. Casey, reflections on the breaking news.
Right, well, it sounds like we're going to be sitting here for a few hours, right, covering all this breaking news. No, I mean, to pick up on what Dana and Jamie were saying, I mean, clearly, I don't know if Scalise has another option, Dana, than to just take this and basically say, you know, I dare you to vote against me. I dare you to do this thing that so many of you say that you don't want. And honestly, you know, he has Scalise, we don't know the outcome of this private ballot vote, right? But we do know that Matt Gaetz, for example, chief flamethrower, has said he would be fine with Scalise as being speaker. And so my question is, how many of the people who are opposed to Scalise are ones who are willing to break all the glass? Because that really has what's differentiated these 8 from the rest. Because usually all those incentives that you were walking through, they work, right? Yeah. A threat to, you know, not put you on the committee that is going to help your district, that's going to get you reelected or get you more power or more money or whatever, they stopped working with this group of 8. Now, I'm not convinced that they are going to do the same sort of maneuvers with Steve Scalise. I think that's the test here.
Yeah. Let's stand by for a moment, because Manu Raju is back on Capitol Hill with a Republican who was in the room for that closed-door vote. Manu.
Yeah, Congressman Brian Stout is the chairman of the House Administration Committee. You were just in the room right there. Talk us about what was it like in there, given how emotional the last week has been. The tensions have been so palpable within your conference. How did that play out behind the scenes, and who did you ultimately vote for?
The whole question is here, with the challenges our country is facing, from inflation to a border crisis, to our ally Israel being under attack by terrorists and Hamas, it's essential that we unite. And that conversation was about how we come together. Speaker nominee Steve Scalise, I think, will be a spectacular leader. I look forward to voting for him on the floor. Hopefully that comes sooner rather than later, because of the significance of the challenges that we face.
Can you say who you voted for?
I kept that private through the process, but truly because I believe both Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise would have done an excellent job. Now Speaker designee Steve Scalise, I think, is going to do a great job. I look forward to us calling this vote sooner rather than later. Every day that goes by where we don't have a Speaker of the House is to the detriment of not only us as Republicans, but really to the country. In particular, at a period of time with such historical significance. So I'm optimistic we're able to get there today.
How worried are you, though? I mean, look, you got 113 votes, 99 members voted against him. You know the narrowness of this majority. We've all witnessed the 15 ballots in January. That the same thing could happen again to Steve Scalise.
Well, it's not done until it's done. I'm optimistic, though, that we're able to convince all members of our conference that the significance and importance of being united outweighs any individual's personal preference as it relates to the Speaker's race. I believe Speaker designee Steve Scalise will do a spectacular job. That said, we need to make sure that we have a full united group. Ultimately, Speaker designee Steve Scalise is going to make the decision when this vote should come before the House. I'm hopeful that it comes sooner rather than later. But the need to unite, the need to come together at such a significant moment in our history can't be overstated.
What do you think of the 8 members, Republicans, who voted against, who voted to oust Speaker McCarthy at this moment, as you've gone beyond Steve Scalise, everything that we have seen this past week? What is your message to those 8 Republicans?
Well, I wildly disagreed with the move last week that called for a motion to vacate. I think it was the wrong move, in large part because it's left us without the leadership structure that we need in such a significant moment in time. So I disagree with the approach. That said, I think now is the moment for us to make sure that we're looking and moving forward. And uniting behind a leader is our opportunity to do that.
Do you think that Jim Jordan should get behind Steve Scalise? Make it clear. I heard he said in the room he'll get behind whoever can get 217 votes. Well, we don't know if Scalise will. So should Jordan say, I'm backing Steve Scalise?
Well, I'll let everyone speak for themselves, but what I'm hearing is the need to unite. And I think that is true and consistent across the conference, that we need to come together and unite behind one leader. And as the conference vote, Speaker designee Steve Scalise is that man for this moment in time. I think he will do a spectacular job. But the need to unite is what I continue to hear from most of our members. That said, as we've seen play out, we have some individuals in this conference who don't feel that call, but hopefully they'll feel that by the time we come to the floor.
And we'll see what happens. Congressman, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Yeah. So that is the big question, as Congressman Sal just detailed here, is that whether or not some of those members, those holdouts, those people, the 8 members who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy, many of them did not vote for Steve Scalise. They voted for Jim Jordan. Steve Scalise, of course, was McCarthy's top deputy. They didn't always get along. They had a bit of a frosty relationship at times. But nevertheless, a lot of them did vote for Jim Jordan to be Speaker. Will they come along in this key vote where he can only afford to lose 4 Republican votes? And, of course, how Jim Jordan messages this is important, too. Congressman Stiles suggesting that he suggested unity, but other members saying that he suggested he would get behind whoever gets 217 votes, which Scalise did not get behind closed doors. So some of those key questions will continue to percolate here in the hallways as they move towards a vote as soon as this afternoon. But again, that decision is up to the Speaker nominee, Steve Scalise, if he wants to roll the dice or if he needs more time to cut some deals to win over some of those skeptics. Guys.
Yeah, still a lot of questions to answer, Manu. And Casey, I wanted to ask you something that the congressman from Wisconsin brought up, something that Dana alluded to previously, and that is the external pressure that is now on Congress. Because you talked about the incentives that Scalise can offer some of his members, but obviously there's a lot happening. And one of the key issues that I think is likely to be first up for whoever is elected Speaker, if it is indeed Scalise, it'll be at top of his list, is aid to Israel. So how does what's happening in the Middle East ultimately move members that may be reluctant to move forward with the Speaker's vote?
I mean, I think it just clarifies the stupidity of the situation in general, right? I mean, the fact that the U.S. government is currently incapable of acting to fulfill the president's request for additional aid because 8 Republicans decided that they wanted to depose their speaker, right? I mean, on its face, when you contrast what's going on with the pictures that we see out of Israel and the horrific crimes that have been committed and the need to take action, I think that really makes it very starkly clear to people. Now, we will see. I mean, every single time I've predicted that they would, or thought that perhaps they would get it together, and this wasn't actually going to happen.
That's how
it has happened. Right? Right? But no, it hasn't. So, I think, look, all bets are clearly off with this Republican conference. I think all of us who are invested in a functioning government, regardless of what views you may hold about what that government should be doing or how it should be conducting itself, would say, hey, let's move on here. We've got really big concerns in the world. Because, I mean, Dana, I don't know about you, but I remember sitting on TV last week and saying, well, I mean, hypothetically, this would be a really big problem if there's an actual crisis. And I don't think anybody really was sitting there thinking there was going to be a massive crisis. But here we are, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. I mean, and the U.S. government unable to do something.
And the flip side of that is because of that, the holdouts feel that they have more leverage. There are 2 sides.
Right.
And there's a pressure to cave that we were talking about before Manu came on. And then the flip side of that is the leverage. And I mean, I was just texting with one of the 8 who voted to oust McCarthy. And I said, are you going to support Scalise? And the answer was, not yet.
There are a couple of names of people who are sort of curious how they'll weigh in. Donald Trump. He backed Jordan.
Bit of an embarrassing moment for him, isn't it?
It didn't work out, and so what is he going to do at this point? Kevin McCarthy. I mean, Scalise was his number 2. They didn't always get along so well, but does Kevin McCarthy really have any sway right now? Because he was kicked out by the Matt Gaetz 8. And to Dana's point, I mean, we'll have to go through the 8, but there's one that you've been texting with who said not yet.
It wasn't a no.
It wasn't a no, but what's the horse trading going to be here? What is, Scalise can go in. Nancy Pelosi,
Jamie, I hate to cut you off, but here's Steve Scalise speaking on Capitol Hill, the newly nominated Republican, potentially headed for the speakership of the House.
First, I want to thank my House Republican colleagues for just designating me as the Speaker. Obviously, we still have work to do. We're going to have to go upstairs on the House floor and resolve this and then get the House opened again. We have a lot of work to do, not just in the House for the people of this country, but we see how dangerous of a world it is and how things can change so quickly. We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open and doing the people's business, making sure that we're unequivocally standing in our first resolution that we pass under Speaker Steve Scalise will be to make it clear that we stand with Israel. The McCall-Meeks resolution will be our first order of business. But obviously there's a lot more work to do. The conversations we've been having with my colleagues over the last few days leading up to this show that there's a resolve, that we need to get back to work. There's a lot of business to take care of. Families are struggling across this country. You know, we passed a lot of legislation to help families get back on track, to address our border crisis, to get our economy moving again, to address the spending in Washington that's driving inflation, high energy costs. All of those bills that we've passed and that we're going to continue to pass that are sitting over in the Senate need to be taken up. We've passed over 70% of the bills to fund the government. Dealing with appropriations and setting the priorities of this nation's spending, and the Senate has taken up zero. The Senate has to start doing their work. And by the way, in that legislation, including the State Foreign Ops Bill, the Defense Appropriations Bill, includes funding for Israel, things like Iron Dome, precision-guided missiles, things that could be used today to help them in this war. So there is a lot to do. I'm also going to be calling on President Biden to sit down and talk about the crisis at the border. As we have an open southern border, and we've seen millions come in the last few years, including people on the terrorist watch list from all over the world. If he doesn't know now, after what happened, we cannot have an unsecure border. We've got to secure America's border. We've passed legislation to do that. It's time we sit down and have a conversation about how to secure America's border. And it's not a Republican or a Democrat issue. There are Democrat mayors all over the country who've been calling on the president to do this too. That's a conversation we need to have today. There's a lot of busy work to do, a lot of important work to do on behalf of people who are struggling, not only here in America, but who are concerned all around the world. And we're going to provide that vision. We have a lot of work to do. Obviously, I've got some more conversation.
That was Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise, the newly minted Republican nominee for House Speaker. He went through the priorities for the House. He said, we have a lot of work to do. We realize how dangerous of a world it is. He said, quote, we need to send a message to the world. Clearly, as we rejoin our panel, putting some pressure on lawmakers by evoking the ongoing conflict in Israel.
Right, and appropriately so. Although I will also say that this has been Scalise's message kind of from the get-go, right? In saying that, hey, we need to, get it together. This is what I would do right away. I think he's making also, I hear the governing argument, right? Which is an argument that does resonate with a significant, just keep in mind, most of these people voted for Kevin McCarthy to remain Speaker. They don't want this sideshow, and Scalise is speaking to that.
This was a campaign speech. The new add to that would be stand with Israel. He knows what's going on and what people are looking at. But I still say behind the scenes, what is the horse trading that is going on with the Matt Gaetz 8, with the people who voted for Jim Jordan. And Dana, you and I were just sending notes to each other, and I wrote down the word health. It's his health is a problem.
He has blood cancer. Steve Scalise has blood cancer. Now, this is something that everybody in the Republican conference knew and knows. And I'm sure each of you has talked to a Republican going into these discussions about who should be the next speaker. And Steve Scalise's health has been something that is obviously concerning, but not concerning enough for the majority of the House Republican Conference. The question is whether that's going to play in at all when you get to the goal and the necessity of 217 votes on the House floor.
Let's pause for a moment and go back to Manu Raju on Capitol Hill, because Manu, as you've been playing defense, trying to catch these members leaving that meeting, one person has not yet spoken out, and that is Jim Jordan, who lost in the nomination process to Scalise. What are you hearing about his perspective following this historic vote.
Yeah, I mean, typically in these contested leadership races, you oftentimes see these members who've been running against each other come out together, show a sign of support, show a sign of unity, try to move on past what can be kind of a bitter personal affair, these behind-the-scenes private leadership contests. We did not see that right here. Jim Jordan was not flanked next to Steve Scalise. In fact, we're told that he's still in that room. We'll see if we can grab him on the way out. But we're told privately that he didn't explicitly endorse Steve Scalise. In fact, he said something along the lines of, I will get behind whoever gets 217 votes on the floor. He had said that publicly, too, several times to me as I'd asked him before this vote. But the fact that he said it after the vote also is significant. You can only get 217 votes on the House floor if you lose 4 Republicans. So it's unclear how that would happen without the support of Jim Jordan and a lot of his own supporters here. So perhaps there need to be further discussions with Jim Jordan about getting his backing and getting a lot of his backers in line behind Scalise. So some question too, I didn't hear Scalise say explicitly when the vote would be on the floor, because that has been a debate. A lot of these members want to just end this altogether. This has been a difficult week for the House Republicans. Things are completely paralyzed. They know how bad they look. They're concerned about the political fallout. They just want to move ahead. But going ahead without the votes is a huge risk that Scalise and his team know full well. The question is, when do they roll the dice and try to dare their members to vote against this, or do they try to hash this all out behind the scenes? And if they do the latter, that will only drag out for some time. But the first question is, what will Jim Jordan do? Will he get behind Scalise? And will his supporters also fall in line as they try to put this very messy episode behind them?
A messy episode indeed. Mono, please keep us posted if you see the congressman from Ohio. Let's discuss with a Republican lawmaker who was in the room. Joining us now is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon with us. I know it's been a busy one. First, did you vote for Steve Scalise to be nominated as Speaker, and will you vote for him once the vote happens on the floor?
No, I did not, and I haven't decided yet, made a final decision. But I think it's part of the challenge that we've had throughout the year. The majority of the majority has been disregarded by a handful of members repeatedly and flagrantly. And as a result, we deposed of our Speaker a week ago with 208 Democrats. And throughout this entire week, I have asked repeatedly of both candidates what their plan is to deal with that. And frankly, there hasn't been one. And that is part of my frustration, as we move forward. There was a motion to ensure that we change the rules for this election to make sure that we have 217 votes before going to the floor. And I think it is foolish to rush this to the floor unless you know you have 217 votes. And I think that is a challenge at the moment. So it's going to be interesting later today when we go out to the floor to vote.
Yeah, I bet it's going to be interesting. Congressman, what does Steve Scalise need to do to earn your vote? You alluded to creating some kind of structure in which a motion to vacate would not be on the table the way it was for McCarthy, who was ultimately ousted. What else does Scalise need to do to become the 56th Speaker in your eyes?
Look, there needs to be accountability. And when you have a conference of 221 members and it requires 218 at any given point to pass legislation, then you need to have structure, you need to be able to work together as a team. And I think that has been one of the biggest challenges throughout these 10 months, is the handful of people who have refused to work as a team. And unless there is accountability on that, it makes it very hard moving forward. The idea that somehow just rearranging the deck chairs here is going to fix the problem, or somehow that Kevin McCarthy was the problem, is laughable. Kevin McCarthy did a phenomenal job as Speaker, and I think the question for those moving forward is what is actually going to change that's going to fix the problem. And so far, I still haven't heard an answer to that.
Congressman, you were a vocal supporter of Speaker McCarthy. You voted against his ouster. You had very choice things to say about those who pursued the motion to vacate. I'm wondering if you think the former Speaker is now helping the effort to avoid what would be a messy fight on the floor, or if he has concerns himself that may lead to more drawn-out conflict.
I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I'm just going to speak for myself and what my concerns are at this point.
And so, Congressman, do you think that the others involved, the 8 members who voted to oust Speaker McCarthy, now have outsized influence over who the next speaker is going to be? What's your message to them?
Well, I think that's the problem here. We had 8 people who teamed up with 208 Democrats to remove a duly elected Republican speaker. And there has been no reckoning on that. There's been no, frankly, honest and frank discussion about that. And so I still have concerns about how this works moving forward. And I've expressed those concerns, and seemingly on deaf ears. But I think before going to the floor, the speaker designee better make sure he has 217 votes.
On that note, every vote on the Republican side is going to count, and this is sort of a sidetrack, but it gets to the main question of electing a new speaker. You actually recently, I think as soon as today, co-sponsored legislation to expel Congressman George Santos from Congress. There was a superseding indictment that was filed yesterday, 10 new charges that he's facing, including identity theft, all sorts of fraud. Given that the margins are so slim for Republicans, specifically in electing a new speaker, potentially on aid to Ukraine also, is it the right time to try to expel Congressman George Santos?
Well, that's kind of ironic coming from the press. I mean, they've been pushing for the man to be expelled for months. Look, it takes 2/3 to expel a member from Congress. There were not 2/3 votes back in May when the initial expulsion resolution was brought, which is why it was referred to the Ethics Committee. Myself and my New York colleagues wanted to allow the time for the investigation to be handled, but with the guilty plea of his treasurer admitting to the very scheme that he has been now twice indicted on, with 23 felony counts, he cannot serve. I've said repeatedly since December he needed to resign. I believe that, and in the absence of his resignation, the time to act is now. I mean, it's just it's clear with his treasurer's guilty plea what occurred, and as far as I'm concerned, he should not be a member of Congress.
To be clear, Congressman Ulmer, I was not in any way defending the actions of George Santos. I just wondered how the math might come into play, because it seemed like it did come into play when McCarthy was asked about potentially asking Santos to resign, and
we can't do anything. We can't do anything until there's a new speaker anyway. So, I mean, the reality is that it has been introduced. It will be a privileged resolution, and there will be a vote on it.
Congressman, how much does what is happening in Israel, the attack by Hamas, a brutal attack on civilians in Israel, how much does that weigh into your decision making when it comes to electing a new speaker?
Look, it's obviously very important. There are a lot of important issues that my colleagues who chose to connect with 208 Democrats to remove the speaker last week should have thought about before doing it. And the reality is, from our border to the spending to the crisis in Israel and Ukraine, we have a lot of challenges that we need to deal with, that we need to get back to work on. But whoever the speaker nominee is needs 217 votes, and they need to make sure they have it.
Is it fair to say that you believe those 8 Republican members that voted to oust Kevin McCarthy have put national security at risk, given that the House is now frozen before it can elect a speaker?
Look, currently the administration has the ability to do what it needs to do. We need to obviously increase aid to Israel to help with supplemental funding, especially for the Iron Dome. And we need to get back to work on that expeditiously.
Don't forget about
at the
Ukraine.
End of the day, we have a job to do. We need to elect a speaker. We need to get focused on the issues that matter to the American people and impact our allies around the world.
Congressman, I also wanted to ask about the classified briefing House members received earlier on the situation in Israel. Obviously, there are things that you can't share with us, but I'm wondering what stuck out most to you about that briefing, if you perhaps learned anything about the number of Americans currently being held hostage by Hamas.
Look, we did learn some classified information. Obviously, I'm not able to share a lot of it, but you know, we are concerned about those that have been identified as missing. You know, we have not confirmed that they are in fact hostages at this point, but certainly my objective in the immediate is to get our hostages, potential hostages back, and to make sure that any American citizen who wants to leave Israel and come back to the United States is able to do so expeditiously. It's why I've called on the administration to get military aircrafts to Israel immediately so that we can get folks home. The biggest challenge right now is United States commercial airlines are not flying into Israel because of the insurance and the security risks. And so as a result, we need to make sure that we get military aircrafts in to help evacuate our citizens.
Don't forget about Ukraine. We can deal with Israel and help them. But don't stop helping Ukraine. Don't forget about Ukraine. Remember, they got a foe they're fighting. Putin, Russia. Don't forget about Ukraine. You Republicans, help fund Ukraine again. Besides Israel, help to fund Ukraine in the end. Don't forget about Ukraine. Help Ukraine. Besides Israel. Yes, that's right.
Funded and backed Hamas for years. The idea that somehow they were caught off guard is the biggest load of nonsense I've heard. They are absolutely involved, and any notion to the contrary, people should disabuse themselves of quickly.
And Congressman, I also wanted to get your thoughts on the 300,000
That's right. Watch out for
Israeli
Iran.
troops that have been mobilized.
They're backing Hamas.
It appears as though a ground operation into Gaza is imminent. I'm wondering what you think the end goal should be for Israel. Is it the dissolution of Hamas?
Not the dissolution, the elimination.
That's right.
Hamas is a terrorist organization hell-bent on wiping Israel off the face of the earth, and they should no longer exist. And anyone affiliated or associated with them should reap the consequences of it.
Are you concerned at all that doing so could lead to a protracted military presence in Gaza by Israel that would likely lead to what would seemingly be an endless war, an insurgent sort of combat in an urban landscape with millions, perhaps, or hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties? Does that concern?
Let's understand what happened here. Hamas, a terrorist organization, invaded Israel with the express intent of killing innocent civilians, women, children, babies, beheading babies. This is a barbaric, disgusting, vile, terrorist regime that needs to be eliminated. And Israel has every right to defend itself and its right to exist. And they should take any and all action necessary to do that.
Congressman Mike Lawler, we appreciate the overtime with you in having a very broad conversation. Please keep us posted on whether you plan to support Speaker Scalise if you wind up speaking with him later today or not. Thanks so much.
Thanks.